All right, bet we rolling. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate everybody for being here. I'm not gonna take up too much time. I'm gonna pass things over to my good brother Ishmael, Amir, so we can get started with this conversation today.
Yeah, good afternoon. Well, it's still morning time, so good morning, everybody. Like y'all said, losing track of days of the week. I'll just lose track of time altogether. But as always, I just want to thank the CME for inviting me. Always a pleasure when I get the opportunity to come join and connect. Appreciate that. We are going to just make sure you're on mute, please, everybody. We're going to rely a lot on the chat, I think, for conversation. I'm happy to see that there's a lot of us on this call today. When we have opportunities, I will ask people to unmute and chime in. But again, just getting back, just saying thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know we all got a lot going on in our lives. We at the end of the semester, pretty much. I'm sure y'all are wrapping up either in the midst of or getting prepared for some final exams or final projects and things like that. And the purpose of our time today, the brief time that we have over the course of this hour, it's about each and every one of you. It's about just taking the time to be intentional, to practice self-help, self-development, because at the end of the day, in our busy lives, whether it be family, friends, school, business, things like that, being intentional about caring for yourself and challenging yourself is what's going to keep you inspired and keep you fueled. So that is what I'm passionate about. A little bit more about me. For those of you that have not met me before, again, my name is Ismail Amir. I live in West Philly. I work full-time for Apple Retail as a retail manager, but what I do when I'm not at work is this. I love getting the opportunity to connect, to share my experiences, and really to try to connect with you all to inspire you to continue just to challenge yourselves and push yourselves to be better each and every single day. I'm 32 years old. My wife and I have been married for coming up on 5 years. We have a 2-year-old boy and a daughter on the way due in August. So super excited as we prepare for the next chapter of our lives. A little bit more about me personally. Went to Westchester University, but prior to that, I was orphaned at a young age. My mom passed away when I was 5 years old. My pop passed away when I was 11 years old. I love having a conversation just to share my life story a little bit more. So if anybody wants to connect on a personal tip, please feel free. My contact information will be up at the end. But I'm a firm believer that our experiences in our life, whether it be the pain or the trauma or the good experiences, play a major role in defining and shaping us into who we are and where we're headed and what we want to do. So, the things I've been through in my life have brought me to this, and this is why I'm very passionate about being able to connect with y'all, to share where I've been and where you've been and where we're going. So without further ado, I do want to dive in because I don't want to spend too much time. It's not about me. It's about each and every one of y'all. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me a thumbs up when you can see it. Let me see how I want to do this. All right. I'm going to share my whole desktop. So y'all can probably see. Can you see my Zoom screen right now?
Yep.
All right, bet. So I'm going to minimize that for now. I'm going to hit play on this, John. And let's get into it. So I've entitled today's workshop. It's entitled, and we'll get to it on the next slide. It's called Facts Over Feelings. But I wanted to kick us off with a fact. And the fact reads, the mind is the body. I'm going to read it again. The mind is the body. I want to take a minute and let's utilize the chat. What do I mean by this? Throw your ideas, throw your responses in the chat. I know this is probably coming out of left field. Y'all like, what is this man talking about right now? All right. Got a couple joints coming in. Al says the mind controls the body. Angelo says your mind is your temple that holds power. Pat says it's all connected. Lamar says the mind is the controller of the body. What else y'all got? For sake of this exercise, there's no right or wrong answer. The body can't survive without the mind, Corey J says.
I got one. Where the mind goes, the body will follow.
Where the mind goes, the body will follow. That's one. That reminds me of anybody watch NBA. There's the Kaiser Permanente, whatever that company is called, but I think there's a commercial with Steph Curry.
Kaiser Permanente Medical Center. You got it, bro.
Yep. Steph Curry says, train the mind and the body will follow. Again, no wrong answers. We're just throwing them out there. The mind and the soul is all connected. Cool. Keep them coming, y'all. Again, no right or wrong, and I'm not here to actually respond or tell you if you're right or you're wrong. This is just an exercise for us to be able to give a response or share our interpretation of what this means. Cool. All right. So I told y'all that today's session is entitled Facts Over Feelings. This is one, if by chance, maybe you've been in some of the workshops I've had the opportunity to facilitate before, but this is one that I have done in the past, and this is one of my favorite ones. So the purpose of the 60-minute workshop is to better understand the power of emotional intelligence as tools to be utilized to help us shape and control our realities. Milton in the chat says the mind is the decision center, and Al says mind plus body plus soul. Yep. All right, cool, y'all. So yeah, so that's it today, y'all. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna have a conversation. I'm gonna teach y'all or talk a little bit about some things specifically related to the power of emotional intelligence. We're gonna keep it funky. We're gonna keep it simple. We're gonna define what these things mean. And then we're going to just dialogue a little bit more about how it's applicable and how we can take this and implement it even more so in our everyday life. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a yeah. Give me a yes in the chat if you with me and if you're ready to move forward and keep it rocking. Got a thumbs up from Pat. Got a thumbs up from Andre. Let's go. We got a yeah. Bet it. Keep them coming. We got a woo. That yellow thumb bothers me, Pat says. Cool. All right. So let's start. Let's start by defining it, y'all. What is emotional intelligence, or what is EQ? Boom. Emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of, to control, and to express one's own emotions. So obviously, y'all, we are a chat full of young men, seasoned men in general for the Center for Male Engagement. And this word emotion, man, is one I think that we could probably just have a conversation on the word emotion and take up the whole course of an hour. You know, I love having these conversations because I think our experiences with emotion are pretty unique or pretty diverse as we've grown up. I think a lot of times as men, this idea of what emotion is probably something that we a lot of times have tried to disconnect from. Can anybody relate where we felt like when we was young, we were oftentimes told to brush off our emotions or to put them aside or to not show emotion? What are y'all thoughts when you think about the word emotion? Who wants to jump in? When you reflect upon how you were brought up or how you were taught, what is your association with the word emotions?
What are those?
What are those?
Nah, we don't have those.
Anybody else? Is that pretty similar?
I used to have this really fire box that I would put all my emotions in. And until I actually started going to like therapy and having to like acknowledge that that box was there, I was just like, man, just chuck it in there. And now emotions, or back then, emotions were always associated with like, put it in a box, set it and forget it.
Shane, why do you think that is, yo?
Well, the larger answer, right? I think as Black men and men from like racialized communities, we were used as like some of the first levels of human capital and used as tools. And so you don't need a tool, you don't need a hammer that can cry, right? You just need something that can do a job. And then you overlay that with like capitalism and how we have to be human capital and keep doing these things and keep being productive. And then you have poverty weave in as well. So you don't have time to feel because therapy is expensive and counseling is expensive and all these other things are expensive. And then you're not shown that you can be a man that feels. When we think about how men are usually socialized to be the provider, you have to suck it up and provide, right? If we look back at the Great Depression, like if you didn't have $1, you had to go out and get it and hustle, and it doesn't matter. So I think it's like a combination of all of those things. Plus, it's just really hard to feel feelings because I don't actually know how to like fully tap into it without watching a cartoon these days. So that's what I got.
Yeah, man. I'm seeing in the chat, I'm seeing suppression of crying. I'm seeing femininity. Man, justice, that's the word right there. I think for me, you know, from a very young age, right, you associate crying or showing emotion with, stop acting like a little girl, right? Stop bitching. All of those things. And as time has gone on, like Pat said, emotions, what are those? Adley, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yeah, for me, emotions have always kind of been like growing up, it's been scary, you know. So yeah, I'm always like kind of scared and weary of my own emotions and those around me. So I tend to, instead of like, so I guess like nowadays, instead of like actually feeling my emotions, I try to like rationalize it as a way to cope with it. And yeah, so that's just caused me to be a little more emotionally available to people. I mean, to very few people, because I just can't have the capacity for it.
Yep.
And yeah.
Yo, Adley, appreciate that share, brother. I think that's a key piece. And as time goes on, I think we'll talk about that a little more. But what I will say in response to that, I love what you said around, you find yourself less emotionally available to a few amount of people because you don't have the capacity to do it or to deal with it. And I think it's a muscle, man. Like everything that we do, it grows or it contracts the more we practice it or the less we practice it. So for us as gentlemen or as men, the longer ago we put our emotions in that box and we haven't been practicing it, when we're met with people or loved ones, family members, friends, romantic partners that are looking for us to be there for them emotionally, a lot of times we're like, I got maybe 5 minutes or I got 10 minutes because I don't have the capacity. Go ahead, Dre.
Now, I was just going to say that, like piggybacking on what was said earlier, like emotions, what's that? It's like as young, men of color, young men in general, we're taught, we have these stigmas that's placed on us. The only acceptable emotions were those of rage and hostility, etc., because that seems to show more masculinity. So now that we have these labels that are stuck to us, oh, we're combative and hostile and all the rest of that. I mean, these are things maybe sometimes to no fault of our own, we grew up in. So I think emotional intelligence is when we say we're taking it back, and if I can express, rage, anger, hostility, and that's acceptable, then why can't I express nurturing to my children, or, passion to my woman, or whatever. So, I think emotional intelligence starts with, the point where we say we're going to take it back and decide what emotions we feel are okay for us to express.
Yo, spot on, Dre. You pretty much have defined it for us, or defined really the purpose of what we're going to exercise, what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to do my best to give us all a little bit of education about the power of, or the importance of, emotional intelligence. And then the challenge is always for y'all to go out and practice, because there's power in emotional intelligence. There's power in EQ. And quite honestly, there's a lot of bad information out there in this world, right? You think about, if I say EQ, that might be a new term to some of us. Some of us have maybe never heard EQ before, but I bet you if I say IQ, we've all heard of IQ before, because we're taught at a very young age about IQ and taking IQ tests. And, when we're kids, that's kind of helps where we're placed in school and all of these kind of things in our IQ. But the fact of the matter is, and hear me when I tell you this, EQ is a more powerful and more important tool than IQ is. And super briefly, I'm going to tell you why. Your IQ, a person's IQ is actually fixed, meaning that is something that you are inherited or born with, and you don't have the ability to actually improve IQ. However, EQ is actually something that you can grow, that you can develop. And when it comes to true life leadership skills, whether it be like Al said, in being a father, or being a husband, or being a leader, or being whatever it is in the workplace or in your life place, your ability to be aware of, control, and express your emotions is a major unlock, and helps define the trajectory of where you're going or where you're heading in this life. So love it. Shout out to you for that, Dre. Mar, did I see your hand up, Lamar?
Yeah. I wanted to just kind of speak to what Andre was saying. I think that emotional intelligence is having the awareness of the feelings that are being stirred and triggered up in you, but also having the maturity to express them in a healthy way, or to know when to kind of just put it in check, and not let it get the best of you. And unfortunately, we are in a society that we, we as men, period, are not really taught how to do that. Um, and so when you do express your emotions in a way of crying, or feeling sad, or just speaking passionately, you may be given the label of being soft, um, picked on, um, called called all type of silly names, and so and that starts at a young age. You know, you might be called those terms from your older brothers, your uncles, you know, your pops. And so when you're constantly told that no, that's not what boys do. He said, so what you crying for? Stop crying. Stop crying. You know, when you grow up feeling like that crying is improper for a man to do, and
Yep.
that it's not cool to communicate how you feel. And then to make it even more worse, when you start to get into relationships, especially with the opposite sex, you know, there may be issues going on, and your, you know, and your partner may be wanting you to communicate your feelings and how you feel, but because you never been taught or never thought that it was right to do, you, you don't have the knowledge to do it, you know.
Yep. Mar,
And so yeah,
I
so
appreciate
that's what
that.
I want to say.
Nah, Lamar, you hit the nail on the head, man. And again, that's the purpose for why we're together. That's the purpose, is for us to continue to just share perspective, and to share our experiences. And Al said in the chat, in my opinion, emotions are like water. Water damages things if it sits too long. Not showing your emotions and crying on the inside will rot your insides. I used to be able to store my emotions until I didn't have any more space left in my body to store anything. You have to get your emotions out in a way that will help you positively. Facts. So, listen, I'm sure we can all relate where we've had things, or maybe a person that something's been bothering us that they've been doing. But because we operate out of this, no need for me to show emotion, we typically ignore it or throw it to the side. And then one day we erupt, right? We go off on that person. That person's probably like, yo, where did that come from? Well, when you think about it reflectively, it's probably because, not probably, it's definitively because they've been building up. And it's like a soda bottle. You shake it up. The more you're shaking it, eventually that lid is going to blow off. We all have emotions, right? So going back to Pat's like, what are those, right? It's a fact that we all have emotions. It's up to us to recognize that, to become aware of those emotions, and then learn and figure out how to control them. I want to keep us moving for sake of time, but man, y'all are with me. So super simple, right? A fact. Back to the title of this workshop, we have facts over feelings. And what I pulled here, y'all, this is nothing crazy. This is straight from Webster, my man Webster. What is a fact? A fact is a thing that is known or proven to be true. What is a feeling? A feeling is an emotional state or a reaction. I put two definitions here. They're both listed. And the second one is a belief, especially a vague or irrational one. I got a question for y'all, and I might be jumping ahead a little bit. And I am going to jump ahead a little bit. What percentage of human decisions do you think are based upon emotion? What percentage of the decisions that people make are based upon emotion? Throw it in the chat for me. Let's use the chat. What percentage do you think? $85. Lamar says, keep them coming, y'all. What you think? 90%, Corey J says. %, 100%. Answer. 90%. Corey J hit the nail on the head. Corey J, you using Google, I know. Let's think about that for a second. 90% of the decisions that people make are based off of emotion. Let me go back. So they're making their decisions based upon a feeling. However, part of the definition of feeling is that it's typically a belief, specifically a vague or irrational one. So this is what I want us to recognize, y'all, that if 90% of people are out here making their decisions based upon emotion, that means that 90% of the decisions being made out here are being made off of vague or irrational feelings. So the opportunity for us here, and the reason why we're talking about, and I want to challenge you at the end of today, is to dive in a little bit more around emotional intelligence, is bringing us back to the capacity to be aware of, to then control, and then express your emotions. Your ability to be able to become more aware of your own emotions and then control how you respond to them. By default, if you start practicing this, it's going to put you in that 10 percentile, in the 10th percentile when it comes to decision making. And here's another fact I have for you. Studies have shown that people with higher EQ have greater mental health, greater job performance, and greater leadership skills. Yo, you want to get ahead in life? You want to excel? You want to thrive? Practice EQ. Because 90% of people ain't. 90% of people out here making their decisions on a whim based upon how they're feeling. So I'll put this in the chat for us a little bit earlier, but I just want to revisit it. There are 5 characteristics of emotional intelligence. We've got self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. The more you practice self-awareness, right, the more I can begin to recognize how I'm feeling, how I'm responding to certain things that are happening. Yo, when this happens, I feel anxious. When this happens, I feel sad. When this happens, I feel excited. I feel passionate. I can begin to become more aware of my own feelings, my own thoughts, my own emotions. And then the second piece of this goes hand in hand with the control piece, is how can I start regulating my own emotions? I'm going to give you an example. We've all heard of this idea of what happens when we're presented with something that makes us feel fearful. And the 2 human responses are fight or flight. So I'm going to give y'all a real life example. For me, I told y'all at the beginning of this call that I'm passionate about this, that this speaking and this connecting to share experiences and to help people that look like me get closer to achieving their dreams and their goals is something that I said I'm passionate about. And in fact, it's something that I intend to spend the remainder of my life doing. But the first time I had the opportunity to speak and deliver a keynote address, I had the opportunity to speak in front of 130 people. And I had I had like 3 months notice to prepare for this speaking engagement, but I had never done it before. And I put some things together, and the week leading up to my keynote, I began practicing, like in front of the mirror or in front of other people. And I was supposed to speak for an hour. And I memorized what I had. And when I was practicing in front of that mirror, I had maybe I kid y'all not. I had maybe 10 minutes worth of content. I had 10 minutes worth of speech. And at this point, I'm less than like 24 hours away from the joint. And I'm like, nah, I ain't going to do it. Right? Fight or flight. I ain't going to speak. I'm just going to ditch. I ain't going to show up that day. But the moral of the story, what I'm trying to tell y'all is the fact that I was feeling so anxious or so nervous about the speaking engagement, when I became aware of that and I moved into the self-regulation step, I recognized, you're only anxious or you're only nervous because you care. You're only anxious or you're only nervous because you want to make an impact. You want to make sure that you do a good job. So the opportunity then became, instead of flight, we're going to fight, right? You're going to show up, you're going to do this thing. And at the end of the day, regardless of how it goes, it's going to be a learn. That's the self-regulation piece I want y'all to start thinking about. The more you can become aware of your emotions, you can say, I'm anxious about this. Why am I anxious? Well, you're anxious. You only get nervous about something you care about, right? If you didn't care, you wouldn't be nervous. I'm in a beef with my girl and I'm mad. You don't get mad about stuff you don't care about. You don't talk about stuff you don't care about, right? So if you're feeling those emotions, it means that you care, meaning it means that you're supposed to do something with it. Go ahead, Dre, jump in.
Yeah, I love the way you put that down, brother. For real, I love the way you put that down because the first, I could say the first time that I had knowledge of emotional intelligence, I mean, it was exactly, it was different scenarios on what you just built. And I heard this simple phrase, never let them see you sweat. And it doesn't mean to bottle it up to the point where you explode, but deal with it in another manner. So, by never letting them see you sweat, you're already working towards that 10th percentile you talked about.
Yeah, man. Dre, love that. Appreciate that. Again, y'all, I'm just here just trying to help y'all and just challenge y'all to start thinking a little bit differently. So we got this piece. We got 90% of the other people out here are operating solely based upon their emotion. How many times you see people meet anger with anger, right? You out somewhere and somebody says something disrespectful and somebody else responds with something disrespectful. You meet fire with fire all the time. Well, what happens when you meet fire with fire? You're just going to burn. Everything just going to be burned down. Everything just going to be burned down. You get in an argument with somebody, right? And they say something to make you mad. How often do you respond with something to make them mad? Just off the strength of the fact that they said something and it made you mad. Now y'all both mad at each other. Y'all ain't speaking, whatever. But if a week go by, or sometimes a year go by, you ain't speak to that person because you mad at them. How much of your time did you just waste? Because clearly you still care, right? I ain't holding on to anger if I don't care about somebody. 90% of people out here are operating under this same capacity or this same line of thinking. And what I want y'all to start thinking about again is, how can I be different? How can I operate out of that 10%? So I'm going to, actually, I'll drop it in the chat towards the end, but there's all kinds of resources out here for y'all. There's, in fact, what's called EQ test or emotional intelligence test that you can find if you Google search. I have a couple links that I'll post in the chat towards the end. But the purpose of it is you can learn a little bit more about yourself, how you operate, how you think, how you respond, and then you can start practicing some tips or some tools to begin challenging yourself to move forward. Self-awareness. This is one of the 5 that we talked about a little bit, but this is really the one. Obviously, it's the first step. The key to solving any problem, the very first step to problem solving is to become aware of the problem. Y'all have heard this before, right? Like, the first step to overcoming addiction, I got a drinking problem, I got a drug problem. Step one, become aware of it. Can't solve a problem if you don't know that it exists. So self-awareness is the conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. Got another fact for y'all. According to the 2017 Forbes magazine article, 95% of people believe that they are self-aware. But in reality, only 10 to 15% of people are self-aware. I would like to think that I'm self-aware. I took a EQ test just for practice today. And you got to keep it funky. You got to keep it honest with yourself when you answer these questions. I came to find out that I have about average self-awareness. I have about average self-awareness. Now, to be average isn't a terrible thing. However, I told you all already that EQ is something that I can practice. EQ is something that I can develop. And I know that each and every one of y'all don't strive to be average. You strive to be the best. You strive to be above average. Utilize these tools, y'all. I see a couple hands up. Not sure if they're still meant to be up, but I want to just take a moment if anybody had anything they wanted to jump in with.
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, bro.
This keeps making me think about the trap that men have in general. It's not just black men, it's men in general, and it's with machoism. It kind of sets us up for not developing emotional intelligence, because you get set on this track of having to behave a certain way and suppress emotions that are naturally there. That really doesn't work. It's better to know yourself, and then when situations happen, you're more prepared to deal with those situations. But if you just go into it blindly, I got to act like this, and I got to act like that, well, that might not be appropriate for that situation. So that's all I got.
1,000%. And that's why this is one I'm super passionate about, because specifically for us as men, and I would venture to say more for us, more specifically as black men, like Shane said earlier, we're taught to believe that having emotion or showing emotion is a sign of weakness, right? You fall. I got a 2-year-old son, and I'm guilty. I want y'all to know that when I'm talking to y'all, I'm not talking to y'all. I'm talking to myself as well, right? I ain't high and mighty. I ain't telling y'all that I got this thing figured out, because I definitely don't. But I got a 2-year-old son. And when last night, my man decided it was a good idea to stand up on his high chair, and he took a tumble. I mean, like, on his neck, came down, right? And my first response was, get up. Why are you crying? Get up. Well, my man's crying because I literally saw the side of his neck smack the floor, right? I think it's a natural reaction to probably cry when you're in pain. But how many of us can relate that when we were young, we were told to brush it off? Or how many of us, for real, it's crazy to think about, how many of us got told, keep on crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about? And then we got something to cry about, right? Because we cried. So we fast forward to today, and now we like emotions. What does it even mean? What are emotions? But then we got wives or girlfriends, And listen, we already know that women tend to be a lot more in touch with their emotions. They're a lot more comfortable, a lot more confident expressing how something makes them feel. And then we catch hell when we don't, right? Or we appear to be emotionally detached. And we like, yo, I don't even want to talk about that. I don't even care. Or we suffer a loss. Somebody close to us, we lose them, whether it be a relationship and they're not in our life anymore, or whether it be a physical loss, and we just detach, we shut down. But you know, like I know, that those emotions are still inside of us, right? We're feeling that hurt. We're feeling that pain. We're just not letting it out. We're just not talking about it. We're just not sharing it. But then something happens. Typically something happens totally unrelated. We'd be in a totally different place with a totally different group of people. And then something happens and we erupt. We snap, we lose it. Again, it's because everybody has emotions. But the point that I want to leave y'all, that I want y'all to recognize, is that your emotions are tools, right? While most people are being used by their emotions, feel me, right? Because we just said it, 90% of people are being used by their emotions. It's a tool. We can either use the tool or the tool can use us. So I want y'all to think, and I want y'all to critically, as time goes on, recognize, what is this emotion telling me? So I got some tips, and I didn't make this stuff up. Like I said before, I ain't no wizard or guru who's, sitting down, coming up with the stuff on my own. I've just been trying to learn and to practice it. And you can find all of this. I'll drop an article in the chat once we get to the end, but there's some tips for improving your emotional intelligence. Man, and these, I promise you, they work, man. These are some gems here, for real. Pay attention to your thoughts and emotions. What do I mean by that? Well, I want to bring us back to the first thing I shared with us when we jumped on the call, and I put it on the screen, where I said, your mind is your body. And the way that I interpret that is, your mind is always moving. You're always thinking. You're always having ideas. You're always having thoughts. And another fact I'll share with y'all is, and this one blew my mind when I first heard it, is that 4 out of every 5 thoughts that we have are negative. That's 80% of our thoughts are negative thoughts. So the more that I can begin to pay attention to what I'm thinking about and how I'm feeling, I can begin to recognize when I'm having a negative thought, or I'm feeling a negative emotion. And again, I can bring myself to recognize, what did we say in the definition of emotion? That most of them are irrational or vague. So then I can start challenging myself to say, all right, what is this negative thought telling me? What do I need to action on it? I'm feeling mad at this person, but I'm not having a conversation with them. So I'm just going to keep being mad at this person and waste my energy being mad. Maybe I need to take this and have a conversation. That's one. Practice setting goals. Man, this one's good in a lot of different ways, because I think what you'll find by setting goals is you'll begin to recognize, how do you operate when it comes to goals? Do I become a maniac and I'm obsessed with accomplishing that goal, and I'm willing to do anything and everything and crush or stomp out anything and anyone in my way to overcome that goal? Am I ruining relationships? Or maybe I'm not very good at moving towards my goals, so I get dejected easily, or I give up too easily on my goals. Journal is another one. Man, this is one, again, coming back to that whole machismo, right? That masculinity thing. I know for me, for a while, when I thought about journaling, I thought about, man, girls writing diaries, girls writing journals, girls write down how they're feeling. Bro, I promise you, you ain't got to share it with nobody. But the more you start writing, and then you can take time a week from now or a day from now, and just when you're in a good headspace, read that page of what you wrote down, and you start noticing themes or noticing trends. Yo, I've been writing a lot about how people have been making me mad, right? And I can notice that. 5 of my last entries were about somebody who pissed me off. What's that telling me? I might need to do something with that. Meditate. Give me a hand up if you practice meditation or have practiced meditation. Pat said, writing helps me see how temporary or flawed my thinking can be based on the emotion that I feel at the time. Anybody practice meditation? This is another good one, man. I'm not great at it. I don't practice it as regularly as I would like to. Pat, CME had a meditation, or not Pat, Al, CME had a meditation session?
Yeah, Corey set it up. We had it was like breath work and meditation. So we had that maybe a month or two ago. So it was definitely worth it. That meditation part is definitely worth it.
Yeah, man. Insight Timer is a good free app, Pat says. I would encourage at the beginning of the day or end of the day, I think meditation is a great way to start and or end your day. And meditation takes practice, but the practice of meditation is to just give yourself the opportunity to do exactly what we just talked about, like to just observe your thoughts without making a decision, without feeling like you need to action them or do anything with them, but to just make room to hear yourself identify the things that you're thinking about. Meditation is a good one. The Calm app, YouTube, man, the resources are endless. There's another one called, I think it's called 10% Happier or something like that. Pursue your passions. This one, man, that one's dope because you find out a lot about yourself when you begin to recognize and allow yourself to feel the things or the emotions that get you excited. Again, coming back to me, this right here, and I would imagine, I hope that y'all can feel my energy. Yeah, I don't get like this all the time. But I started to recognize how passionate I am about this, about these kind of conversations, about this kind of work for our people. And I decided, I'm going to start doing this every chance that I get because it brings me happiness. It brings me excitement. Pursuing your passions. It helps you figure out what you like. But the opposite side of that, if you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, there's a lot of power as well in figuring out what you don't like. Sometimes you can get closer to figuring out what you want to do with your life by crossing the X's off of the things that you know that you don't want to do. So pursuing your passions. Another one is asking for constructive feedback. We've talked about this in all of the sessions that I've had the opportunity to facilitate with y'all at the CME is, there's something powerful about having a mentor. There's something powerful about seeking wisdom or guidance from somebody that's been where you want to go. And when you ask them for constructive feedback, like, grind me up, chop me up, tell me the truth, right? Where do I need work? emotionally, where do I need work? They might say, yo, sometimes it seems like you just don't care. You might need to hear that. Or sometimes, yo, you lose your composure and you scare people and they don't want to be around you. Might be something you need to hear. And then the last two is practice listening to yourself and talk to yourself more. There's a video, and I'll post a link for this too. I wanted us to watch it, but unfortunately, I don't have the ability time-wise today. But there's a powerful video, and it's called The Fifth Dimension by KRS-One. I'm going to drop the link, but this is a good one when you think about listening to yourself and talking to yourself. I said it before, I'll say it again. You're always thinking. It's not possible for you to shut your brain off, unfortunately. Even when you're asleep, you're thinking. That's why you're having dreams or nightmares. But the more that you can, again, begin to listen to your thoughts and become aware of them, you can then start rewiring and start talking to yourself more. Again, 4 out of 5 thoughts are negative. So if I know that 4 out of 5 thoughts are negative, I'm going to start feeding myself by talking to myself to give myself more positive thoughts. I'm going to say, I am confident. I am determined. I am a good communicator. I am okay with my emotions. Corey J says, my car is my sanctuary to speak life into myself and to pray. Yo, that's a word. For real, what I'm telling y'all, right? When you talk to yourself, you praying to yourself. You're praying, right? You're speaking. If you pray and you're praying to a higher being and you're putting it up, you're speaking, right? Whether it be inside dialogue or whether you verbalize your thoughts or verbalize your prayers. Love that, Corey J. Dre says there's something powerful about the CME sessions, and it's being able to build and bond with brothers of like and unlike mind and experiences. Y'all, the last thing I'll leave y'all with is this. Above all else, remember who you are. And that brings us to what I just said around who I am. If I'm feeling frustrated, I'm going to recognize that I'm feeling frustrated. And then I'm going to start saying, I am feeling calm. And the more that I tell myself that, the more that I'm going to be able to take the steps and have the conversations or express the feelings or express the emotions that were leading to my frustration in the first place. Milton says, consider blessings and gratitude. Facts. Y'all, it's 11:58. Yo, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. For sake of time, unfortunately, I have a 12 o'clock. I do have to get on. So I do got to wrap in the next minute to minute and a half. But I really just want to say thank y'all, man. I hope, I pray, I ask that this was beneficial, that y'all found value in this. And I ask that y'all shoot me a text, shoot me a message, whatever it is. Here's my contact info. You can text me. My phone number's up here. You can hit me on the gram. I am legend 0123. You can hit me. Share with me your thoughts. Share with me how you're feeling. Share with me anything that you took away, anything you like, anything you didn't like. Yo, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I want to drop really quickly in the chat